beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Kule Agbayani, and we are going to start off the show coming in hot. Breaking news to hit the Twitterverse and now is making its rounds all across the state so far is that the University of Hawaii will become a full-time member of the Mountain West Conference, effective in 2026. And joining us right away to talk all about it is the guy that's been pretty busy throughout this, I think, last half a day or 12 hours or so. But joining us now is University of Hawaii Athletics Director Craig Angeles. Craig, welcome into the show, and thank you so much for squeezing us into, I know, what has been quite eventful for you for the last overnight hours.
No, thank you for having me.
First things first, I'll give it to you first. Just maybe a brief opening statement of everything that has transpired overnight for all of the Hawaii fans.
Well, it did transpire overnight, but it really has been going on for quite some time, as you know. I mean, with the conference realignment going on all around us, we thought that we were all pretty stable here in the Mountain West Conference, being a football-only member and being involved in other sports in the Big West. And so we thought we were in a pretty good position as all this is going on around us. And of course, then the Pac-12 broke up. And then we thought, well, eventually we're going to end up with those two schools, Washington State and Oregon State. We really thought there would be some type of merger that would be going on and maybe assemble a 14-team conference, for us out here in the West Coast. And so the more that went on, though, and they seemed to not be warmed up to that idea. And, we started getting a little bit worried. But of course, then they, about a month ago, swept in the dark of night and took 4 teams and then 5 of our teams. And so that really shook up our conference, because our conference has been more stable probably than any other of the FBS conferences over time. Maybe the MAC has been more stable, but we thought we were pretty safe. And so that, threw out a series of events for us and made us look at all of our options. We didn't want to get left behind if there was some type of merger and then maybe they dissolve a conference and then just take the top teams, or would we be in the top teams? I thought we would be, but you never know. And, people talked about, oh, you should maybe think about going independent, but that would not work out here to try to get a schedule of 12 or 13 games on your own without a conference that gives you 8 games a year. And so, and the Pac-12 was looking around. We wanted to see if that was an option or a good option for us. And we got involved in those discussions too with them. And they were very interested originally in our late night window that they thought they could monetize and some other aspects. But at the end of the day, I think they felt that maybe the cost benefit was not worth it, because there was exit fees involved and poaching fees involved that would have had to been paid for us, et cetera. And so, it was just a matter of looking at all of our different options. And we always thought that the Mountain West was our best option for a stability standpoint. I mean, we love the Big West, and they've been great, and it's a great conference for all of our other sports. But with this ever-changing landscape in college athletics, we thought it'd probably be best for our football program and others to be locked up into an FBS conference with all of our sports. And so that kind of dictated our decision at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we are joined by UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles, talking about the breaking news coming in overnight that Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. Now, kind of leading up to this, you would always be pretty transparent about potential discussions with the Mountain West Commissioner, Gloria Nevarez. And some of the main thing that you always said is that you're going to examine the cost benefit of such a move. So if you could explain to our listeners a little bit about what is that cost benefit now and partially led to this decision, such as maybe the exit fees. And I know everyone had questions about the travel subsidies. So just tell us all about how this is beneficial financially for the University of Hawaii.
Yeah, we did put together all of our expenses and revenues that we anticipated incurring during this move. Certainly there's a buyout fee for the Big West that we have to incur, and part of the deal was for the Mountain West to pay that exit fee for us, which they will. And then we also looked at other aspects. There's a higher, for example, membership fee to be a member of the Mountain West Conference. Certainly they waive the entry fee, but a membership fee on an annual basis. Certainly the travel subsidies will eventually go away. And so that will create a little bit more revenue on our side. So we felt that, as we examined our expenses and revenues with this switch, that it would be provide more revenue for us on an annual basis. And of course, being a full-fledged member of the Mountain West, you'll get a little bit more money in that regard too. I mean, keep in mind, football really drives college athletics and drives conferences, and I think probably about 85% of the revenues that come to a conference come through football. Certainly they get money through basketball units. When your basketball teams go to the NCAA tournament, they get certain amounts for every unit. A unit is every game that they're played in, whether they win or lose, they get a unit. And so that does bring in extra money also there. But generally, college athletics, 85% of it generally comes from football. So we were getting a lion's share already by being a part-time affiliate member in football, but this will allow us to access some of the other revenues that come with being a full member also. So it did provide additional, in addition to the stability I think it brings to our program and long-term viability, I think it also brings with us some more revenue on an annual basis that will be helpful for us. So we wanted to make sure it was a win-win situation for us, because we really did love our existence in the Big West, and they treated us very well. But I think, as I mentioned, for those two reasons, I think that was kind of the impetus behind eventually just joining up with the Mountain West.
Yeah, and speaking of the Big West, Hawaii has fared pretty well in a lot of their sports there, obviously outside of football, of course. But what are some of the discussions that you've had with Big West Commissioner Dan Butterly, and for as much or as little as you can share with us?
Well, the Big West does not drive as much revenue, of course. Doesn't have any football there as a member of the Big West, but certainly, we do pay travel subsidies there and that kind of thing. But they were Dan was very interested in keeping us. I think he really likes Hawaii as a member. They have 5 Cal State schools and 5 UC schools, and then Hawaii. So we don't exactly look like them, but we do have a lot of commonality, and our sports play really well with them, and I think they like coming over here. So, we kept them updated on kind of where that was, probably heading, and he understood that in today's landscape with that football issue that might make the best sense for us. But he still was very interested in keeping us and treated us very well, and so we're hopeful that maybe our other 4 sports can stay in the conference. That when we do leave, because there is no home for them in the Mountain West Conference, as you mentioned, the 4 sports of water polo, men's volleyball, beach volleyball, and men's swimming and diving. And so our hope is that they can stay in there. We'd pay an affiliate fee for them to stay in there. So we'd still have that connection to the Big West, but the other sports would go in the Mountain West. So that's kind of our plan. But they've been very good with us, very helpful, and wanted to keep us. And we're able to, we're willing to do whatever it might take. But he understood it was kind of a bigger issue than that.
And we are joined by UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles. If you guys are just tuning in, we're discussing the news coming in overnight that UH will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. And if you're just hearing about the news, as Craig just said, that there are a few sports that the Mountain West does not sponsor, that being men's volleyball, women's water polo, beach volleyball, and men's swimming and diving. So you mentioned that there is an affiliate fee. So I just want to make sure we kind of talk about that too. What would the affiliate fee be? As you mentioned earlier, that Hawaii will not, the Mountain West will cover the $750,000 exit fee from the Big West. But what is the affiliate fee for those sports to stay if Dan Butterly sees that would be an option for Hawaii? And will the travel subsidies with the Big West still remain if those schools or those sports stay?
Well, first of all, Dan will have to get a vote. Just want to clarify that. I think Dan would have to get a vote from the board of directors, the presidents and chancellors in the league, to approve us staying in there. The affiliate fee generally right now for other affiliate members in our conference is about $25,000 per year. I think that could vary going forward, but I think that's the approximate fee from my recollection right now. And so without that, most likely, unless they increase it or change it in the next 2 years, would probably apply to us about $25,000 per year. as an affiliate member. And so then your final question about the travel subsidies in those particular sports, that's a good question. I mean, I guess that could remain in those three sports. Well, let me see. Men's swimming just goes to a year-end tournament. They don't
Got
play a
it.
round robin, so they don't have people coming and playing them over in the islands. So there wouldn't be any travel subsidies there. The other sports, of course, yeah, men's volleyball has a round robin. Beach volleyball has people come, conference members come over to play us. And what was the other one?
Water polo.
Water polo, same kind of thing. They have people coming. So I guess it's possible in those three sports. We haven't delved that far into it yet. Got to first see if if they allow us to stay, and then after that we can take a look at what that looks like.
And for sure, going back over to the Mountain West, I got to ask, I feel like I already know the answer, but I've just got to ask anyways, is there going to be a change in the 5% payout that Hawaii is set to get from the exit fees / poaching fees that the Pac-12 and the exiting schools are paying to the Mountain West?
Yeah, you probably saw that because I think it was broke at some other schools that had to comply with some open records laws on that. But that was in real time now, where we still are an affiliate member based upon some formula that they've utilized and a one-time bonus payment. So the good thing is it's a one-time bonus payment. Certainly we would have liked to have gotten more, but it is a one-time payment. It doesn't stay with the conference year after year. And some conferences have that, like, where one team has been granted a higher amount of revenue because of their historical success and whatnot. And that's always good and appropriate probably when they are winning. But, if it's in perpetuity and then they stop winning, then the other schools are like, wait, I saw the reason for that before to incentivize, and they were winning to keep them, but now they're not winning. So why do we not take that away or make that adjustment? So sometimes that becomes an issue in a conference, but because this is just a one-time upfront bonus payment, then like I said, it won't be changed now because we still are an affiliate member. We're not a full member for 2 more years, so they'll go off what the makeup is now, keep it the same, and then we'll be a full-fledged member going forward with future kind of payments types of situation like that.
Yeah, and makes total sense as we are joined by UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles. Now, the national media, Brett McMurphy on the Action Network, actually reported about the possibility of the Mountain West also adding Toledo and Northern Illinois as football-only members. Is that something that you were aware of at all? And if so, is that something that you think would be beneficial to the Mountain West in terms of scheduling, of course, for football?
Yeah, I did not know that. I will say that honestly. I mean, there's always discussions in the Pac-12 now, as well as the Mountain West, of what the makeup should look like. I mean, I do know that if we're right now, even before we go in, there's 7 members now with UTEP in there plus us. So on the football side, there's 7 plus 1. We'll be a full-fledged member, so it'll be 8 fulls. But I do know that the discussion has continued to go on about, can you get a 9th football school, whether it be an affiliate member or a full member? Because if you have 9 schools, then it makes football scheduling very easy because you all need eight conference games. So if you have 9 schools, everybody will have 8 conference games every year. If you have 8 schools, for example, then we would play everyone one time, and do we play someone twice in a season so we can get 8 conference schools, or do we just have 7 conference games? I think we would all rather have 8 conference games, and some conferences even have 9 conference games. So I think that does come into play, that it would probably be better to have a 9th member playing football for you so that you can have 8 conference games every year. And again, maybe that's an affiliate member. So I as we've all read in the last month or two, or even in the last 4 or 5 years, all the speculation going on about things like that. I mean, the MAC has a pretty good conference. They're a bus league. They can bus everywhere they go pretty much, and other than maybe Buffalo. And they've been a long-standing league. And so, the reason people move in realignment generally is for their own, for their own selfish purposes. And that's generally for additional money. I mean, that's why, even Oklahoma and Texas, when they first started this, John, a few years ago, it was all about chasing the money. We've all been chasing the money, and generally the multimedia agreement is what dictates it. So I guess they would have to say or see whether it was financially feasible for them. But keep in mind, when you leave to go to another conference, and you just can't really just take your football team and leave everything else behind, because the conference being left behind will not let you keep your other teams in there. They're like, why would we let our revenue generator, your football program leave us, go somewhere else, and then us house your other teams? So you either all stay or you all go. And so, people don't realize, like, when Air Force was being discussed about that with the American Conference. Well, I was on the American Conference many years, and people probably don't realize that Army and Navy that play football in the American Conference, it sounds really good, but they have their other sports parked in other regional conferences close by that they can bus to and do that kind of thing. So, I do get a kick out of when I hear all the speculation, like Memphis to the Pac-12, for example. Are they really going to take their football team, their basketball programs and soccer programs and baseball programs out to play in California all the time? Same with Air Force when they were being talked about in the East. Would they really take all their teams, play basketball out in Florida or North Carolina or Philadelphia? So a lot of speculation goes on. That's a long answer to Brett McMurphy's names he put in there, which I didn't know he did that. I have not read it today. But I do think it's a lot of things just get thrown out there. And again, I do not have any firsthand knowledge of those teams and what their intentions are, but I just think that behind the scenes, what are they doing with their other teams? They're not going to be able to stay in the MAC. So I don't know if the money's good enough to move, and I doubt they'd move all their programs over here if given the opportunity. I don't know. So a lot of speculation.
Yeah, and we'll definitely find out more as the days go on, as we are joined by UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles, discussing the news that Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. Again, Hawaii has been a football-only member since 2012. Okay, now we're going to switch gears ever so slightly, just because I know, as we've been saying entirely in this conversation about the revenue and football driving things, obviously, part of, I'm sure, has been discussed is the potential media rights deal that has to come in with the Mountain West. I know we talked about that previously when Hawaii chose to stay, at the time, only football in the Mountain West Conference with the other schools. But can you share anything about what this does mean potentially for the TV deal? I believe the current deal is set to expire July 31st of next year. So there's kind of like that 1 year gap in between that and then when the new Mountain West full-time member status is supposed to change in 2026, July 1st on 2026 to be exact. So if you can share, I get it. I understand that maybe things can't be discussed, but if there's anything that you can share, as much or as little that you possibly can.
Yeah. And I may not have a lot of knowledge on that. I mean, certainly you mentioned that the Spectrum deal, which we really enjoyed, they cover all of our sports and do a really good job with that, expires at the end of this year, June of 2025. And then, of course, the Mountain West deal was is set to expire the year after. And so the question has come, what do we do in this 1 year gap period? Can we extend with our current partner? Do we link arms with the Mountain West early? Is the Mountain West going to go out early now once they solidify their membership? I think they're going to plan on getting a little jump on it and go out a little early. How long that will take, I don't know. But most likely what will happen, I imagine, is that we will, now that we're a full-fledged member of the conference, they'll want us to have all of our media rights in there. And then, of course, like with the other schools too, they will have access to all of our football and probably basketball. And then, of course, whatever they don't want to access, then it would drop down to the institutional level, and then we would be able to put it on locally like we currently do. So don't know exactly what that will look like, but most likely that's what will happen. So, we still want to make sure that we are carrying all of our games, our other sports locally, and then anything that they don't pick up, at that level that we're able to distribute here locally. So, but it looks like, we'll probably eventually merge our time frame and our deal with the new Mountain West contract whenever that comes up.
Yeah, definitely something I know Hawaii fans will pay close attention to. Before I let you go, Craig, Paul, do you have anything for Mr. Angeles at all?
Have you been able to get any sleep in the last 8 hours?
Well, I stayed up late last night. You know that we were supposed to have a press conference and release it, a joint release with the Mountain West and Big West and ourselves this morning. Uh, but the word did get out, and so last night I was getting a lot of calls and inquiries, and I decided to accommodate them and be fair across the board, and so I did, and so that went on for a little while, and then it started early this morning. I didn't think it was going to be breaking news in the D1 ticker, which is what everyone in college athletics follows every day. If anyone wants to go on, it's a free subscription, d1ticker.com, but it has all the college news in the morning edition and the evening edition. So we're all glued to that. So once it hits the ticker, then it's all over the country. And it hit the ticker as breaking news early this morning. And so then the phone and everything was lighting up. And so, yeah, it's been pretty busy. Funny thing last night is as Rob DeMello called me, and I thought he was just having a conversation with me on my way home and asking me about some of these things because I got home really late. And next thing I know, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, I'm almost falling asleep on the couch, and it comes on the news where my conversation with him is being transcribed or listened to on the news for about like 2 paragraphs worth. It's like, oh my goodness. I was just driving in the car as I was talking to him, thinking he was just going to take notes and he was going to edit something and do all that kind of thing. And I didn't know it was going to be a live kind of interview. So, you always get a little nervous. I think I get a little nervous because you're never quite sure how you're going to come across, whether it be in print or live, and how you're going to sound, and whether people will, are you going to say the right things? Are they going to misinterpret you? People are going to scrutinize you later. So it's always a little nerve wracking, but yeah, it's been a good, I mean, this is good news. It's good news. It's been very well received across the board. I think everyone saw that it was necessary and a good positive step for our program. So in that sense, it's always easier fielding those calls than it is when there's problems.
Well, on that note, we are going to let you go because I know you got to almost do this all over again. Maybe immediately after this. I don't know where you're next, but I know you have the press conference at 10 o'clock. So we appreciate you for adding us to your long list of media accommodations that you have made. And
His media tour.
Yeah, your media tour. And you deserve a mud pie from Waialae Country Club, my friend.
I do. I need one of those. I love that place out there. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You're the best. I always love chatting with you, and anytime.
All right, Craig. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks. We'll see you.
Bye. That was Craig Angeles, the University of Hawai'i athletics director, and just talking about the breaking news to come through the pipe about the University of Hawai'i becoming a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. And as he alluded to, and kind of caught us off guard because we are privy to the information that it was coming down, but we're told that there was going to be that official press conference that Craig mentioned, and there still will be. But Brett McMurphy via the Action Network kind of spilt the beans early, and then it was just an entire media frenzy for everybody. So once again, we appreciate Craig for taking the time to join us. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, Paul and I will definitely discuss and reevaluate and tell you all the details you guys may have missed when we come back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. Let's Wake Up in the Den alongside Paul Brecht. I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Woo! How's everybody feeling this morning? Man, and by the way, we usually only stream on Mondays, but we are streaming today because it's just such a big day in the world of college sports for the University of Hawaii at Manoa specifically. Of course, if you guys are just tuning in, breaking last night via Brett McMurphy of the Action Network on Twitter, announcing that per a source at that time, that the Mountain West Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. And obviously, we heard from Craig Angeles right before the break, confirming everything and giving us the details that he could. So some of the things that maybe you guys may have missed where we were on with Craig is that this will begin on July 1st, 2026. UH will pay, the Mountain West will pay the $750,000 exit fee from the Big West. And so that's part of the cost-benefit analysis that we always talk about, where if it would be a decision that Hawaii or Craig and President Lassner and the powers that be would look into in order for this to happen. Craig said that the discussions with Big West Commissioner Dan Butterly has been very open. And of course, it has nothing to do with the relationship that Hawaii has with the Big West, meaning that they have a really good relationship and they love being a part of the conference. The conference loves having Hawaii in there. But at the end of the day, as we always talk about, football is kind of this revenue driver. And the Mountain West pretty much gave a lot of reasoning to join, being that Hawaii now, can you imagine? I never thought this would happen. But not only is the Mountain West wanting Hawaii that bad where they will pay the $750,000 exit fee, but also the travel subsidies for the sports that are going to join now all go away, which is huge because with the travel that Hawaii has to pay for itself and the travel subsidies of the sports and including football, you're looking at over a couple $1 million a sports season that Hawaii has to pay. Now, if you're the University of Hawaii, you only worry about half of that, but potentially it goes down because of their continued partnership with Hawaiian Airlines. And I've said it before, with Alaska and Hawaii merging, this maybe would bode well for the University of Hawaii because Alaska has always been very supportive of sports, some professional teams and college teams. You see their sponsorship everywhere. Not only that, but they also fly to more places. And if it was just a Hawaiian Airlines, so that could come into play. So all of those things in the long run could potentially, save Hawaii a lot of money than what they've been doing right now. So that went into it. Of course, some of the sports that the Mountain West does not sponsor, being that they don't have championships for, are men's volleyball, which I know is huge for our Hawaii fans here. Women's water polo, which women's water polo has been doing extremely well in the Big West. Beach volleyball also doing well. They just won the Big West tournament as well last season. And then men's swimming and diving. But as Craig said, men's swimming and diving is a little different from the other sports in that they don't actively travel and do a round robin type of situation like the other three sports I just mentioned. So there's still more details to be figured out on whether those sports will remain in the Big West. And if they do, Craig had mentioned that at the moment, the average affiliate fee is $25,000 per year per sport. Should Dan Butterly, the board of directors, and everyone vote to allow Hawaii to remain in the Big West for those sports. So that is still details that are left to be hashed out and the future of those sports. But fortunately for Hawaii, I think the travel subsidies is the big thing with the other sports going over and being part of the Mountain West, which is, like I said, I never thought that would happen, and that they would completely, Gloria Nevarez and the Mountain West would say, you don't have to pay any affiliate or any travel subsidies. That's huge for Hawaii and a big time saving.
This feels like Hawaii got a really good gig, really good deal just in general. And that hasn't always been the case with the Mountain West. Yeah. And that's not to disparage the Mountain West Conference in any way, shape, or form, but it's felt like Hawaii in a lot of ways. I mean, even all the way down to the revenue share for the poaching fee and how that gets split up, right? The one-time bonus where Hawaii was by far the lowest of all the schools or all the remaining programs. And for once it feels like Hawaii wasn't taken back to the woodshed, but instead Hawaii sat at the actual negotiation table and stood up for themselves. And I hope that's a sign of different times coming for Hawaii athletics just in general. And I truly do believe that it is, because it's cool to see more of these programs that, like you mentioned, have been competing in the Big West. Now they get an opportunity to compete at a little bit bigger stage in the Mountain West, and they get to improve even more there. While, when it comes to our Olympic sports, we have a really good thing going. I say once again, Paul Breck, known member of women's water polo, men's volleyball, beach volleyball, all of that. There's a very solid thing going there where you heard Craig mention it. Got a good relationship going with the Big West schools for the most part. Just in general, you like the eyes that it brings to your conference that already doesn't have football on top of that. And just in general, I'm not terribly worried even if it doesn't remain in the Big West, because Hawaii in those sports specifically are some of the best teams in the country. So that in itself makes those attractive options for other conferences. What is it, the MSPF or MPSF?
MPSF, which Hawaii is used to being in that conference when it comes to men's volleyball. So it's not something that'll be completely far-fetched in that sense. But yeah, they'll definitely find some home for those sports. Luckily, you have some time, obviously.
Right. It's not like immediate either.
Yeah, I do want to bring up something that I did bring up to Craig in our interview, that part of what Brett McMurphy wrote in his article is that there's a possibility of the Mountain West also adding Toledo and Northern Illinois as football-only members. Craig did say, in his opinion, and the MAC is still very, very strong in Craig's opinion, that if you were the conference, you wouldn't really allow your football schools to just go and leave the rest of the sports. That's why Hawaii was in a good position, being a football-only, where they could take football and go wherever they wanted, and all the other sports were safe in the Big West. But looking at schools like a NIU or Toledo, for them, I think this is the interesting thing in the article, and I tweeted about this too, because we talk about the value that Hawaii has now brought and that's been made aware of in terms of the late window and being the quote-unquote chase game, or just being the late night reality TV that is so attractive to watch, even if you're not even betting on the game. It's live sports, everybody. Like, the sports are becoming more and more popular, but Hawaii brings that late night window not only for football now, you're going to bring it for other popular sports like men's and women's basketball, which will be huge. Women's volleyball is gaining more popularity across the country now that we are seeing. But the interesting thing about Toledo and Northern Illinois is that this would mean that the Mountain West would be in 5 time zones so they would spread out to 5 time zones. So can you guys imagine that? Like, having 5 time zones covered specifically, and they're talking about football, and if you're shopping around the media rights, you're talking about football and being able to shop around 5 different time zones to potential media partners. So let that sink in, because again, we talk all about football is a driving force with revenue and conference realignment, but imagine how much more significant this makes, and how much I feel like I've been talking about this for over a year now, and finally it's kind of making its rounds, how valuable Hawaii is being that late night window game. But can you imagine being the only conference that spans across 5 time zones, and how that would bode when you're shopping around media rights?
It makes sense, right? Where you want to be the ones who are always in the eye of the consumer. You always want that Mountain West logo popping up on the screen, whether it's first thing in the morning or I guess afternoon on the East Coast, right? On, noon, bang, there you go. Already got a game going on. And then it ends when people are going to sleep or when people have to stay up late for work. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I, as somebody who grew up on the East Coast, was up doing homework, was up, just kind of hanging out. I'm playing Xbox with my friends or whatever, and I have an extra screen near me. And obviously not everybody has that case, but a lot of times there is TV on. There is some sort of sports on past 10, past 11. And is it always going to help you? No, but it's also going to help you a lot of times. While it's not totally for the East Coast people, Hawaii playing at midnight Eastern time, it's it's hard for them to stay up. But it does give you it gives you the night game now for the West Coast. It gives you the still night game for Hawaii, right? It's giving you more opportunities to remain on the screen from the start of the day to the end of the day, and that alone is enough in at least in my mind, in attractiveness towards a media rights deal where you can make this the conference of literally the entire country. That's big.
I just love how Hawaii has all of a sudden found its footing and is essentially the ugly duckling. At one point, Hawaii was just kind of this toss away and nobody thought it really brought that much value. And we get it. It's because the football program hasn't been like consistently good, say like a Boise State, who year in and year out, they're always going to be at the top of the conference and the eyeballs will go that way. Part of the reason why Boise State kind of had its own media rights deals separate from everybody else in the Mountain West, similar to Hawaii. But now Hawaii has, become, again, they went from the ugly duckling and now there's this beautiful swan and they're the girl at the dance that everyone wants to date. On the flip side, though, it makes me, and I asked Craig this in our interview, the situation that has to deal with our friends at Spectrum, because now all of a sudden, if the Mountain West does indeed hold Hawaii's value very, very high, mostly because of the time zone, the Mountain West is going to do everything in their power to make sure they control when Hawaii's part of the media rights and include Hawaii in shopping around this media deal, which could eventually leave Spectrum out. Now, when we asked Craig, if you guys didn't hear the interview, obviously you'll be able to listen to it later and watch it on our YouTube channel as we are streaming live now on YouTube. But there's that still left to be discussed. There's different options on the table, but we can speculate because, like I said, if you're the one that these two entities want, the Mountain West and Spectrum, or the future media partners, like, I don't know how Spectrum can stay in the mix. I mean, would they have to pay more than the just over, I believe, $3 million a year in order for Hawaii to consider? Because if you look at, if the Mountain West shops like the bulk of what they have, say if everything goes well, Toledo and NIU ends up in the Mountain West for football only. I mean, imagine if the payout is somewhere between, like, I don't know, maybe $8 to $10 million per school. That's significantly more and would have to be a big chunk of change that Spectrum would need to come up with in order for Hawaii to even entertain the idea of staying with their longtime television partner. So that's left to be seen. Again, Craig doesn't have an answer for that. The Spectrum deal is set to expire at the end of this sports season. So there is that 1 year gap between, or the 1 season gap between the end of the Spectrum deal and when the new Hawaii becoming a full-time Mountain West member and potentially the media rights deal. So there's so much. I mean, it's like it's so much information, and this is all the stuff that we've been kind of trying to find out and hitting the news table last night. It's been a fun ride overnight, you guys.
I really did ask Craig if he was able to get sleep. I did that purposefully because I have barely been able to get sleep. And that's not even like because the Jets made a move or because the Jets played bad yesterday. Like, it's literally my entire focus has been on this today. I didn't even text Ku'ule back this morning. She prodded at me a little bit because I said something about hating the Jets. And still my focus was on this because this is, like we've kind of said, this is the news that we've been waiting for. This is the news that has been on the table. Leaves plenty of questions still to be answered, but we finally got a lot of really important answers about the future of what Hawaii athletics is going to look like. And Craig, I do want to bring up one word that he said, and it was stability. Mm-hmm. You know, that was something that it's stability for not just football, but all sports to be in an FBS conference because football rules all. To have that stability, to have your spot at the table, it goes a long way in being able to plan and be better going forward. It goes a long way in giving the opportunity to all of your programs to actually be able to compete long-term instead of just thrusting them into any situation with no resources, with no planning, whatever. So I'm really excited about this move. I am excited about the stability that it maintains and will continue to bring more of for Hawaii athletics. And I'm curious about what more dominoes will fall after this, because there are still plenty more that will come.
Yeah, and Paul, we didn't even really mention it. I mean, you and I are huge basketball fans, and but I did mention it before when this was speculated that I would be all now if the numbers made sense, which according to Craig, it seems like financially Hawaii is getting a good deal out of this. But I was all for it because competitively, I mean, you set your basketball teams up for a lot of success because the Mountain West. Now, I know people are still maybe potentially worried about baseball because the Big West is traditionally known as a competitive baseball conference, and that's to be fair, but at the same time, I'm like, you're still going to go to big time schools in traveling with baseball, but on the basketball side, you're looking at a league that gets at least 2 automatic bids into the tournament consistently. Like, I think there might be only 1 year since the Mountain West was formed that they only got 1 bid. So automatically 2. Last year they got what, 6? 8? It was a lot.
It was like 30.
Because they were so good. So if Hawaii can compete, now it is going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. UNLV on the women's side has been pretty dominant in the Mountain West so far. But you know what? Who can compete? Our women's team as well. And then on the men's side, it's like half, like the top half of their league is super competitive. But from a basketball standpoint, it's bodes really, really well for the University of Hawaii that I know us in the studio are very excited for.
Scared money don't make money.
I love it.
I am not worried about that, because if you want to compete at the level that these coaches, these players, these fans all want to, this is a step forward, right? And it means you're going to take some lumps at times. That's okay, right? I used to play for a coach who very, very famously around our area would not criticize other teams, but talked about our program in a way where it was like, if you're winning every single tournament that you're playing in, you're not playing in the right tournaments, right? And it's gotten to the point where for Hawaii women's basketball, I'm not saying that they are by far the class of the league and nobody else is even in the conversation of them, but it's gotten to the point where they figured out the formula of how to compete in the Big West and maintain at the top of that conference year over year. I think it's a fun new challenge to go into the Mountain West and have established dominant programs like UNLV already there and go in and be able to compete, because then that pushes you up even further towards the rankings. And then eventually, who knows, maybe you do compete with, I mean, how many times have we seen Laura Beeman schedule a UCLA, a Stanford, a Washington, and all these teams where, you know, they're pretty darn good a lot of times. And at what point do we say, hey, now Hawaii's going to compete with them because you have the resources? Because once again, more money comes from moving up in these leagues. More money comes from being able to make the tournament and make these runs and whatever. And then that trickles down to other programs and whatnot. So I'm excited for that. On the men's side in general, I think people worry too much. I think this is a good recruiting class they have in this year. A lot of good young players who will be entering their primes of their Hawaii careers by the time we're in the Mountain West Conference. And it goes back to the conversation I just said. You're in a higher league. Now you get more eyes on you. That helps with recruiting. It helps with financials. It helps with the ability to send guys to the league, which then helps with the ability to recruit more guys. And it's just, I think it's a really good move, even if it comes with taking a few lickings here and there in the first couple of years that you're in the conference.
Yeah, and maybe with the money that Hawaii will be saving or not having to dish out in the travel subsidies can lead to shifting some of that money into travel for the coaches for recruiting. So on that scale, maybe you open up your recruiting window, not just because you're in the better conference, but because now you have some little extra funds to travel to certain places that maybe they can't right now because they're strapped financially. So there's all of these things that are left to be seen, but I'm so excited.
You also just play in different areas. We talked about it with recruiting for football, right? Where if you're able to add UTEP. I almost said Texas State. They turned us down. Sorry. UTEP, right? Now you have an opportunity to go recruit to Texas more because guess what, guys? We go to Texas to play. You get an opportunity to play in front of your family. New Mexico. You know, it's not all just California schools and you in Hawaii. And that makes things a little bit more difficult when your conference schedule is 2 total states, right?
Woo. All right. We got to take a break and take a little breather. So we will be back to wrap up our number 1 here, as we are also streaming live on YouTube today because there's just so much to talk about. But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. Now we'll continue the conversation about what the breaking news was. If you guys are just joining in, there was an official announcement that the University of Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference. So right now, Hawaii stands as football only and are in the Big West for all the other sports, but will become a full member now in the Mountain West in 2026. But there's still left to be seen what will happen with the sports that are not sponsored by the Mountain West, being men's volleyball, women's water polo, beach volleyball, and men's swimming and diving. So, there's still a lot of details to be hashed out. We'll get into more of the conversation coming up in the next hour, but we only have a few minutes left here in hour number 1. So I got to tell you guys a funny story about this morning, because we knew it was a big show. I knew Craig was coming in, or not coming in, but joining us via Zoom, and how our studio is. It's kind of difficult to stream on YouTube and then also like manage the Zoom. And I know some of you guys can see it from where Paul sits, and it's just the whole thing. So I'm like, okay, is Paul awake? Because if we go back to last night, so us and the team, so me, Paul, Michael, Liscaro, we're all texting about this breaking news and kind of planning for today's press conference. And, I'm texting Casey Smurthwaite and then scheduling Craig to come in. So there's like all of this craziness going on. And then I'm doing the graphics for YouTube. So everyone had like late nights and whatever. And then obviously there was a significant Mountain West Monday Night Football game yesterday that had to deal with Paul's New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills, in which it was a rough one. We'll talk about the game itself more a little bit later. But there was breaking news, and I fell asleep on the couch. So I woke up at like maybe 4 o'clock this morning. Like, you kind of wake up like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And naturally, like all of us sports media people do, first thing I do, I look at my Twitter just to see if there's anything going on. And first thing that pops up is that the Jets have a massive trade and will likely get Davante Adams. So they have agreed to the contract, and they've restructured his 2024 contract, lessening the cap hit. But this was huge. I texted Paul them in our thread when I saw it at 4 something, because the last thing Paul said was like, you're mad at the Jets, and I was like, you're still angry at the Jets? I emojis, but I just left it there because I was like, oh, they're sleeping, whatever. So then this morning, Paul didn't text anything back, which before the show, sometimes we text each other.
To be fair, it's pretty rare for me not to respond.
That's what I mean. It was huge news about Davante. And if you guys have been listening to the show, you know that Paul has been saying Davante Adams to the Jets for a week or two now. Huge news. And then I'm like, all right, well, that's weird. I get to the studio, Paul still hasn't texted back. Oh, whatever. And then I go on Twitter again, and then I realize I was like, I don't think Paul's tweeted since last night either. This is really weird. So then I get concerned. Did Paul sleep through his alarm? Because I'm thinking oh my gosh, this is going to be difficult to tell everyone that we were going out live on YouTube and we don't.
Of all the days to sleep in, it would not be the one.
Yeah. So I never call Paul before the show to make sure that he's coming, but because he's Mr. Active on Twitter and there's breaking news and active in our text messages, and I'm like, is he okay? So I literally called Paul, and then the background noise, I could tell he was driving in. So then I'm like, okay, just making sure, because I wasn't sure. I didn't see any activity from you following the big news about Davante Adams going over to the Jets. Don't do this to me.
It was really funny because I'm sitting there, I'm listening to this little break. I'm part of these Jets fans groups, right? So I have this 10-minute podcast I'm listening to about the Davante Adams trade, whatever, driving in, and all of a sudden the podcast stops and I'm getting the phone, I'm like, what the heck? And it's Ku'ulei's calling, and I'm just like, oh God, I hope everything's okay. And it's just I was like, you're that worried about me? And it's totally fair, because there was one time that I did oversleep a little bit, that I did end up texting you at 7:50. I'm like, oh my God, I'll be there by the end of the first segment.
Yeah.
But today really was just, I was so laser focused on getting all my ducks in a row with the Hawaii news. And realistically speaking, the Jets, I don't know. I have so many mixed feelings right now with them. It is as soon as I'm out, they pull me right back in, and I just don't want to go back in type of thing. So what a morning it has been. It was an incredibly funny moment to be like, oh, God, is everything okay? And that's really just what you were wondering about me.
So that's a little insight when someone doesn't text back or is active on Twitter when you expect them to be about something big. It kind of worries you a little bit. But anyways, yes. So the Raiders are sending Davante Adams to the New York Jets, and also coming through about 30 minutes ago, the Buffalo Bills. Just when we thought, like, hey, the Jets lost to the Bills and all right, we're gonna shore up the offense, reuniting Davante Adams with Aaron Rodgers, and then here comes the Buffalo Bills, and they will get Amari Cooper and a 6th-round pick from the Cleveland Browns, and Cleveland is getting back a 3rd-round pick, 2025 3rd-round pick, and 2026 7th-round pick. So just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for Paul,
I couldn't even get my moment. They couldn't even just give me my moment.
No.
They killed me last night. I wake up today. I don't even get time to celebrate the move that we make. And just in time, by the time I get a chance to go on air, we're talking with Craig, and I get the Bills have made a trade equally as big as yours. Great, thanks.
Oh my gosh. Fun times here in the world of sports. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back for hour number 2. So don't go anywhere. Streaming live on YouTube as well today. We'll be back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, hour number 2. Paul Brecht, Ku'ulei Agbayani. Woo! It's been a whirlwind of a overnight in sports news and on this show. If you guys are just tuning in the first hour, we talked about the breaking news that came out last night, first reported or first tweeted by Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, that Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. And as you just heard Chaz Ontai say in the sports report, we were able to chat with UH Athletics Director Craig Angelis as well to open hour number 1. So if you guys missed it, you can go watch it on demand at hawaiisportsradio.com a little later, or on our YouTube channel, as we are streaming live on YouTube today. Usually it's just Mondays, but because it's by all accounts a big time show with big news, we thought we'd also stream on YouTube today too. So it's just, if you guys are just tuning in, so if we backtrack a little bit, looking at how long Hawaii's been a football-only member in the Mountain West, and that's been since 2012. And last month, obviously, it was reported that Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State announced their plans to leave the Mountain West for the Pac-12, which would be effective 2026 as well. And later on, Utah State did the same, leaving behind the rest of the schools because they were not state schools. That's the only reasoning to that. That's what it was, that they don't end in state. No. But so both conferences, though, the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, were still looking to make their conference whole, because you do need 8 members, especially in football, to remain at the FBS level. And then that why it was significant, and Hawaii generally could hold a lot of the cards to become a full-time member in the Mountain West Conference. And Gloria Nevarez and the conference saw it fit, and the discussions have been happening over the last few weeks, ever since, or maybe not even weeks, but months, it feels like, throughout this entire process. And the decision has been made for Hawaii to join the Mountain West Conference as a full member, thus bringing the conference up as a whole to the 8 members needed. Because UTEP, I forgot, UTEP had also joined. But the interesting thing, too, that was brought up in our discussion with Craig is the possibility of the Mountain West still trying to find at least one more member for a total of 9, at least in football as well. And Craig mentioned that should they do that, it would actually bode very well for football scheduling, because you need the 8 conference games, and that way everyone just plays each other once. If there's 9 schools, at least 9 schools. If not, then you might have to play a school twice, which, hey, wouldn't be too crazy. I mean, imagine if we just did home and away with UNLV every single year. I think that would be fun. But no, the Mountain West is still looking around, and then we'll see what happens as they continue to potentially shop around the media rights. The Pac-12, to their part, did add Gonzaga. As we know, they have a very dominant or very prestigious basketball school that will be added to the Pac-12. But something else, too, that I saw from Brett McMurphy's write-up is that the league, being the Mountain West, has shown interest in at least Northern Iowa and or Toledo from the MAC, to add, at least in football only, again, bringing that total to the 9 schools and help with everything else. If we talk about the grant of rights, that's something Hawaii signed to confirm prior to announcing that they will join as a full-time member, but confirm that they will stay, at least at the time, football only, along with other schools like UNLV and essentially the schools that got left behind. UNLV, Air Force, Nevada, New Mexico, San Jose State, and Wyoming are all staying along with Hawaii. And the grant of rights actually says that any of those schools can leave only if a Power 4 invitation was extended to them, and that's part of the binding agreement that the Mountain West schools had signed, which also was part of the distribution talks with the poaching fee and the exit fees that are going to be paid from the Pac-12 and the exiting schools. Hawaii getting 5% of that cut. But as Craig said, because that was only about what's happening now, and Hawaii is only a football member only now, that 5% remains the same for Hawaii. But obviously, when Hawaii becomes a full-time member in 2026, things that happen after that could potentially change, because they are now a full-time member, it's crazy. So all of this stuff has been happening overnight. I do, however, want to get into something that we've kind of been asked about a lot via I always tell you guys, if you text, I always want to at least reference your text messages that come through at 808-888-KG1. That's 808-888-5481. Something that came in yesterday, and I didn't want to ask Craig about it. I don't think it's the appropriate time because of the breaking news, and it was also on our live YouTube feed, after Michael had talked about asking Craig about the cow and the milk. So
I saw
of course,
it.
Mike was
I didn't even want to bring it up.
So some things I didn't want to bring up in that interview with Craig, but I was planning to talk about it because, again, I don't want to not reference the text message. So someone texted in that, do you think Timmy's contract will be renewed after next season? So just to pull things up real quick, especially for those on our YouTube channel, I'm not really I think it's a little too premature to talk about the renewal, but I will at least educate everybody on the business aspect of everything and why it is definitely a fair question and something that needs to be thought about. And again, not saying anything here or there of my personal opinion, but want to at least lay it out for all of you guys. So Timmy was named the 25th head coach in University of Hawai'i program history on January 22nd, 2012, and he got a 4-year contract with a 5th-year trigger if the team reached a bowl game in 2022 or 23, which obviously did not happen. His total salary was set at just over $2.5 million, and it's gone up since 2022. So it's $500,000. And then $600,000, $700,000, and $750,000 next season, and then it would have been a little over $800,000 in 2026 if he did unlock that 5th year in the original contract. So, usually coaching contracts are 5 years, just because, like we mentioned, 3 years when you come in as a coach is kind of the expectation that you will contribute or the program will turn around or whatnot if it needs to, and then you have those 2 extra years and you start negotiating if it's you're looking at renewals or not. So I think it is a fair question to talk about because you're right. I mean, you're looking at just what has happened so far and the wins not coming, but looking that now there is only, because that 5th year wasn't triggered, you only have that 1 year left on the deal. So it's an important thing to think about, and I'm sure it hasn't gone unnoticed by Craig Angeles. And now you're going to, Hawaii's already been in the Mountain West for football, so I mean, that's kind of remains the same. But now the program is shifting into this even more like elevated eyeball situation in 2026 when all of the schools or the programs go over to the Mountain West. But now you're thinking, all right, if you're not going to renew it, then how does that affect recruiting as a coach? How, like, players not knowing if they're recruited by this coach, not knowing the future that they will be there after one season, and the other assistant coaches that are there, because if the head coach is not retained, then that means the same thing for all of the assistants. The staff completely changes. So that is why that is a fair question for the texter to have, and that it's something that will be followed for sure, but it's definitely not something that I will ask Craig Angeles anytime too soon or will bring up at all. But I just wanted to explain why this is, I 100% understand why this texter wanted to know and wants to bring up the question, because I look at it from a pure business standpoint that, yeah, it is something that should be concerned should a renewed contract not come in, because it'll ultimately affect recruiting in the long run and how you plan for after 2025.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's a fair question, right? There's a lot of reasons that we've said year 3 is a big year for Timmy Chang and this Hawaii football program, and that is because, like you mentioned, typically it takes a few seasons to get things back on track. Even for the best programs with the best resources, you don't see them go undefeated right away. Sometimes when there's a change at the top, you need some time. That being said, there's been time, and there are obviously still things that are concerning, right? And you understand why fans would start to question this about, hey, what's kind of the plan going forward, especially considering Timmy's connection to the islands. This is somebody that it's not like just a regular coach, and maybe I'm wrong for saying that, but it's not, it's one that you have to consider a little bit more about the legacy of what has been left behind. Does he get a little bit more leash? have you seen things that are encouraging? And, do you give him excuses where this year, how many times have we said, if Stephen McBride doesn't get held out for the entire year, how different does this Hawaii team look? I think we talked about it yesterday alone, where this team is an extra top flight receiver and, maybe 2 or 3 plays away from being 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say at this point, right? Where it's an interesting conversation to have. It's not one that I'm ready to have quite yet.
Same.
But I do understand the question coming up in general, because you're right as well when it comes to recruiting. It's something that at the very least is a question that this staff will have to answer. And I'm sure they would give we're not worried about that. Our job is to come in and to win. And if we win, the contract situation will take care of itself. And that's what you tell the recruits as it is anyway, is like, oh, we plan on being better anyway, and yada, yada, yada. I also am not terribly worried because this is the era of the transfer portal and whatever. So if kids want to come and then all of a sudden it blows up, it's so easy to leave, easier than ever to leave, and also easier than ever to just tamper with other people's players and not have to do anything. Another conversation for another day. Just in general, this is why we were so concerned about losing against San Diego State, why we were so concerned about the performance against Sam Houston State, because these questions, now that both of us have acknowledged are fair, start to come up. I don't think they do if you end up winning games that you feel you're supposed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're just at 500 at this point, the vibes are a little bit different. It's an interesting conversation for a few months down the line.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, the contract itself built in where if there was a bowl game that was a 1, then it would have already triggered that automatic 5th year, and then you wouldn't be having this conversation. But now that after this season, there's it comes into play now in 2026 and what happens. But again, fair question. Like Paul said, not something that you're willing to completely dive into, but I wanted to, as I mentioned, if you guys text, I want to make sure I at least acknowledge it and shed some light to people that are potentially curious as well. So it's a fair question, because it does, to me, will likely affect some recruiting. But as Paul said, it's 100% true, where it's like, well, if if that happens, then they can just slip their commitment. But then there's a scholarship issue. If you commit here, then there might not be the scholarship remaining at another school you could have gone to. So that's kind of where parents and kids might be concerned about on how their future lies and where they commit to. But yeah, the conversation that will tailor down maybe for the end of the season, because Hawaii's going to turn it around, and we're going to shock every week. I'm like, we're going to shock the world. We're going to win Washington State. We're going to win homecoming against Nevada, who has been sneakily good this season. We're going to upset UNLV. We're going to do all of this stuff, and we're just going to, just like Elijah Robinson said, we're going to win out. So then that contract renewal will come, and it'll be easy. just win, baby.
It's pretty much the thing, and it's funny because you and I, and honestly, you, me, Michael, and a lot of people that I know, unfortunately, we all joke that Hawaii and the Jets are very similar in a lot of ways, where at the end of the day, there's talent there. There's people that you like in the coaching staff. There's a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the questions are still there because you're just not winning. Winning solves everything.
Everything.
It always has. It always will. And if the Bows start taking care of business, which they have an opportunity to, I know I'm doom and gloom, yada, 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 yada. They're halfway through the season. Just because one half is bad doesn't mean the other half has to be bad. I'm coping. Sorry, I'm still getting over last night's loss. But yeah, this is a pinch point for Hawaii this season, and it's one that could potentially trigger a lot bigger conversations in the off season, how they finish out this year.
Yeah, on that note, though, we will continue our conversation about University of Hawaii football as they get set to go on the road and play Washington State, amongst the other more details of the breaking news. So we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. This is Wake Up in the Den on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den, Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. All right, I lied. I said we were going to get into some of our UH football conversation, but as the world would have it, more and more announcements that are coming through the pipe. So we got to get to it as we see everything coming in reference to the breaking news that happened essentially last night and is carrying in, and the discussions are carrying over to this morning, where we welcomed in UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles to discuss the news that the University of Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference effective July 1st, 2026. So they will finish out obviously in the Big West for all of their sports and continue to be in the Mountain West for football only before joining completely over in football. Now, there are a few sports that Hawaii will need to figure out what will happen that are in the Big West, and that being men's volleyball, water polo, beach volleyball, and men's swimming and diving. And the Big West did release a statement regarding the University of Hawaii, saying, quote, "Hawaii has a proud history in the Big West that includes 36 conference titles and 3 national championships, and we look forward to having the Rainbow Warriors and Rainbow Wahine compete for Big West titles in all sports over the next 2 seasons. Discussions regarding Hawaii's possible affiliate membership in men's volleyball, beach volleyball, women's water polo, and men's swimming and diving will begin today, and we will have further comment on that subject at the appropriate time." And that is via Big West Commissioner Dan Butterly, and what he had to say. That is something that we did ask Craig in our interview with him, where what would happen, and he did mention that that is still left to be decided. Now, to catch everybody into speed, that the Mountain West will pay Hawaii's exit fee from the Big West, which is $750,000. And should Hawaii stay in the Big West for some of those sports, Craig mentioned that on average, it's $25,000 per sport per year. And I did ask him, because then moving over to the Mountain West, with all of these sports that are going over there, Hawaii will no longer have to pay the travel subsidies, which is huge savings for UH. And I did ask, well, if those sports stay in the Big West, will we still have to pay travel subsidies as they do right now? And he mentioned as accordingly that all of that stuff is left to be discussed. But at least, albeit now this morning, we receive a statement from the Big West Conference, and I'm assuming we'll get news maybe later in the week about more things and what will happen with those sports, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wanted to make sure we mentioned that for all of our listeners that have been following this story closely. And then coming up at 10, our Michael Lescaro is actually at campus, and there will be an official press conference at the University of Hawaii. Obviously, Craig will speak, but also coaches will speak as well. So tomorrow's show, we will definitely have some quotes from that press conference, and you guys want to stick around. But yeah, it's been quite the whirlwind, and it hasn't even been 24 hours. But you know what, Paul? This is what we live for.
This is what sports media is about, right? Media in sports. No, kidding. Sorry. 15 total sports programs will be going to compete for Hawaii in the Mountain West. Those teams include, for the women's side, basketball, cross country, golf, indoor, outdoor, track and field, soccer, softball, swim and dive, tennis, and volleyball. Men's sports include basketball, baseball, football, golf, and tennis, according to the release by the Mountain West there. It's exciting, right? And I'm also glad that the Big West will consider allowing Hawaii to remain, because as much of this is exciting for our programs that are staying, for our programs that aren't coming along into the Mountain West, for the Olympic sports, right? It's something to be said about the stability. That word keeps coming up, right? Stability of staying in the same conference, right? Being able to continue to have the rivalries that have formed there over the years and whatnot. And when it comes to those sports specifically, you actually have some rivalries that have developed in the Big West in a way where it's like not nasty per se, but very, very competitive. And every time they get together,
looking at you, Irvine.
Exactly, you know, and you don't want to necessarily lose those. You don't want to lose the prestige of Hawaii, but this is also an opportunity for the Big West to perhaps leverage themselves a little bit back at Hawaii, right? How can you get the best deal out of this for yourselves, where it's kind of what Hawaii just did with the Mountain West, where they knew the Mountain West kind of needed Hawaii. So it's interesting. There's a lot more that's going to come down the pipeline, a lot more that still needs to be figured out. But in all, there's a lot of good that comes from this. And I'm also just glad in general that we have not burned the bridge of the Big West fully, because they've treated us well, us, Hawaii. Once again, known Hawaii Athletic member, Paul Brecht.
Yeah, but it definitely will follow it, and make sure you go to hawaiisportsradio.com, and we'll definitely have more information and details there as well. I think on the good thing, I mean, we talked about basketball earlier. Fortunately, the Mountain West men's and women's basketball tournament is in Las Vegas. So at least your girl is not going to lose that, because I've been going like how many years now, ever since it was in Anaheim, and then would have like kind of the Disney trip, and now it's moved to Las Vegas. And at least it will, by all accounts, stay there for the Mountain West championships as well. So I'm kind of, everything's just kind of falling in line, and I'm not freaking out about anything too major. And it so far seems to be the best decision for Hawaii, and I'm looking forward to the full-time membership for Hawaii in the Mountain West Conference. It's going to be fun for sure.
I'm hyped. Like, there's no other way to put it, where when I take my reporter cap off, when I take this persona off of a sports reporter, right? Somebody who covers sports and somebody who just steps back and enjoys Hawaii athletics, this is a great move. This is really, really good for what they could do, what they could leverage themselves into, and what it could push them towards in the future. It's really, really fun. I'm interested to see how the competition changes. And I know I keep saying how I'm sick of realignment and whatever. Days like today remind me how fun it can be, right? So good on Hawaii. Excited to hear what more there is to come out from. I'm excited to hear what the coaches have to think. Mm-hmm. That was something that I was excited to read in the little text blast that we got about the press conference, was that there will be some coaches talking, because I think it's important to get their thoughts on this as well, because those are the people who are actually very likely going through this, right? Where they have to learn an entire different ecosystem of a conference, where do we see a little bit of a personality switch in some of these programs? Do we see them impose their will on the Mountain West? There are so many things that I'm excited about.
And how the travel will change now compared to
all over
in the Big West, where you just go to California and you take either like a van or a bus.
You want to talk about recruiting?
Yeah, a bus to a couple of schools. Like you go to one school and then you just take the bus or caravan to another school in California. But now going into the Mountain West, where you have a lot more schools spread out, and even so far as Texas, as Hawaii would need to go to UTEP, which would generally be great for Hawaii, but now you kind of work that in now. Now you have to go to more than just California.
We're already having fun with our other UNLV affiliate, our Mountain West members. The Runnin' Rebels men's basketball account for UNLV quote tweeted the Hawaii Athletics official announcement about going to the Mountain West and said, "How's it, Hawaii men's basketball? Y'all trying to play for a golden spam Musubi trophy?" That's hilarious, and I can't wait to get more interactions with UNLV across sports. Just think about how fun it was. We just had Polynesian night for women's volleyball when the Rainbow Wahine went out there. What a great venue that was. What a great night that was. It's going to be fun to develop this rivalry a little bit more across all sports, not just in football, not just seeing each other every once in a while on the basketball court or on the volleyball court, but actually see, we get to play against the Ninth Island as a legit rival now across all sports. That's what we needed. We need that.
All right, we're getting a lot more texts and stuff to come in, but from Mike, he texted us because we were just talking about how it would be fun for us, and being that he is a UNLV grad, he said it's torture for him because it's now it's like,
that's fair,
especially with basketball, basketball is very close to his heart as well.
He's the only person I know out here who cares about basketball in like the way that I care about it, in that it will emotionally affect them.
Yeah, but
for
now
days
it's his
to come.
schools playing outside of football. Now the two schools that he roots for the hardest in Hawaii and UNLV now will be competing in things like basketball and a lot of the other sports. So it'll be torture. It'll be fun
conference
for
titles.
us. It'll be fun for us, but it'll be torture for people that are fans of both Hawaii and other schools in the Mountain
didn't
West
even
for
think
other
about that
sports.
side of
We
things.
got some text messages coming in, and you can text us at 808-888-KG1, 808-888-5481. Someone texting in, and thank you for this because I was not aware of that, but definitely pointed out that Big West needs Hawaii men's volleyball to remain in the conference because they need 6 members to be a conference for volleyball. So mahalo to you for making us aware of that. Definitely worth mentioning. Something else, another texter coming in. Kind of the same thing. Worth mentioning that a conference needs 6 teams to have an automatic
You guys
qualifier
listen in
to
the
the
same
men's
room?
NCAA volleyball tournament. Without Hawaii, Big West has only 5 teams in men's volleyball. Maybe this gives Big West a little bit of an incentive to keep Hawaii around as an affiliate member. So again, thank you for making us aware of that. And 100%, that would be something that would be important for the Big West because it's the low-hanging fruit instead of trying to go find. And because men's volleyball isn't a common sport that a lot of schools have, and they're all taken up in different conferences.
So just have a premier program that you can just keep instead of losing.
Yeah.
Like it's not like UCLA is going to come over and play with you. It's not like you're bringing Ball State in to join, Purdue, Fort Wayne. Yeah, all of these teams who like you see Hawaii compete against each year. Those are the ones that I guess you'd want. But like there's just it
and
makes
Hawaii,
sense.
by all accounts, it will always kind of get you and get the eyeballs on the Big West because chances are
also-
men's volleyball, they're going to make it to the NCAAs, and so does water polo. They've been very, very successful and don't seem like they're going to slow down that success anytime soon. And so does beach volleyball. So all these sports are successful. Men's swimming, and diving. So at the Big West side, you definitely, from a competitive standpoint, you want to keep them in there. But this is definitely more of the business standpoint that you for sure would not want to lose Hawaii, because then now as a Big West conference, you would be scrambling, just like how we've seen on the football side where they needed to get to 8 schools with Pac-12 and Mountain West. Now we look at it from the Big West side, and they need that 6 school again, because
Just
men's
makes
volleyball
sense.
especially, it's not something that a lot of schools have / invest in as well. So
Correct.
you're not like, it's not something where there's men's volleyball programs that are fighting to get into another conference because there aren't really that many. So that's true. So hopefully part of the negotiation is, all right, if we want to keep our men's volleyball program, you got to keep us all. And this could give that leverage again to Hawaii where, well, if we stay because you need us, maybe more than we need you, maybe our affiliation fee drops down from the $25,000 per sport per year to a little less. Now I can't imagine Craig. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. Like I was like, I don't know if Craig would be like that savage and be like,
I'm
you
better
want us?
just
Then
dropping the
we're
travel
gonna go.
subsidies.
Yeah, we're
Get
gonna
rid of
go.
those and we can call
We can
it a
pay
day.
the $25,000.
Yeah, whatever. Like it's fair. I think that's fair. $100K to stay for some of those sports, but not having to pay the travel subsidies. I think I think we can work something out, Big West. Great. Once again, thank you to our texters who brought that to our attention. Great little nugget by you guys, and one that I was a little bit curious about because I knew that the volleyball numbers were not necessarily great across the nation in general, and even in the Big West. I was always curious. So, a lot, like we've said 100 times now, and there is so much to be figured out still, like just so much, but it will get figured out, and that is encouraging, and Hawaii is for once in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have more information as the week goes along because, as we mentioned, that the Big West did release a statement that the discussions about whether those sports will remain in the Big West, those discussions will begin today. So we should get more information as the week goes along. But for now, we do need to step aside for a quick break. So we'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. Hope you guys are all very much awake right now. I've been up since like 4 a.m. this morning, so we're taking you through the morning every weekday morning from 8 to 10 here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, except for Thursdays when we got Sharks Weekly from 9 to 10 live from the HPU Sports Arena powered by DSE Hawaii. But we are streaming live on YouTube today. Usually we stream every Monday only, but streaming live today because it is a big day.
Yeah, we just felt like
We
it.
just felt like it. Just woke up, and that's why I've been up ever since. It's just like, got a lot of my big coffee cup right here, and looking for a coffee sponsor, by the way. But a big coffee cup right here. Hey, gotta start getting our.
Absolutely the right call. Absolutely.
We're on
the right
YouTube.
call.
We're gonna be
Nope,
YouTube
right
stars,
call.
Paul. So we gotta like.
And you
we can-
showed your perfectly unmarked
yes. Yeti.
cup, so that you can put a nice big sticker logo on it for every time we have a YouTube show, which we do have a marked up in viewers every Monday, when we go over Hawaii football stuff. So, there are a lot of good analytics when it comes to that for anybody who wants to consider it.
And that's kind of the trend, right? Like with YouTube. So I'm just like, yeah, like
Boom,
Paul
right
said, I always
there.
have my big coffee cup. Anyways, we will get back to the conversation about the breaking news that hit overnight with the University of Hawaii becoming a full member of the Mountain West Conference to begin in 2026. And there will be a official press conference actually coming up in about 20 minutes at the University of Hawaii, and our Michael Escaro is there on site, and we will have kind of like some quotes and maybe some audio of what the coaches have to say in reference to this news, because we were told that not only is Craig Angelis, of course, going to speak at that, but the coaches will also say some things as well. And if you missed it, we did chat with UH Athletics Director Craig Angelis to open up the first hour, so you guys can listen to that on demand or watch it on demand on our YouTube channel. And we will have the full, Zoom edited version up a little later with Craig. But I want to, now that we just have some time to go over to some other breaking news that happened before we jumped on air yesterday, and we're still getting more information about this in terms of eligibility, but as it was reported and tweeted out by Greg Biggins of 24/7 Sports, and that in one more interesting midseason transfer, you'll see former Bellflower St. John Bosco starting quarterback Matai Fuiava has moved to Hawaii and enrolled at Kahuku, immediately eligible, and could play as soon as this weekend against Campbell, who of course is the #1 ranked school right now according to the Scoring Live power rankings. Now, this is kind of a big deal because a lot of the things that were floating around yesterday was about the eligibility, and we're still trying to get exact confirmation. I know something that Rob DeMello posted about had to deal with like the 14-day heat acclimation, citing the HHSAA handbook. But when I read through that, I kind of interpreted it as something that is only part of the beginning of the season, because it just kind of it talks about heat acclimation, and a lot of the references of the 14 days talks about the beginning, because ideally, right, some of these kids maybe aren't playing sports throughout the summer, or until their sport comes into play, they're not playing the sport, or they're doing other things, right? Like, I'm someone in high school that did not play soccer year round. I was doing dance, or I was doing other things, and so I did not play soccer leading up to the start of training for soccer season throughout my later years, or even basketball. So the HHSAA, and by what I gather, this seems to be a common, rule across the country, is that there is this 14-day heat acclimation. So there's different periods when kids start playing, and then they're allowed to, and so you have 14 days to be eligible to play. But as I personally interpret it, is that it seems to only, again, take place when the season is starting. If the athlete has not been playing at all, it doesn't say anything about transferring or anything like that, just this acclimation period that does not seem to be only specific to Hawaii. And that's where I'm kind of like, well, if he's already been playing football and he's coming over, then yeah, the way I interpreted it as it's only meant to be in place so that student athletes aren't just coming out from maybe being indoors for the entire summer and then they're going out into the hot sun and running everywhere and then their body gets all jammed up and things, you don't know what's going on. So I totally agree with the rule being in place that young athletes who maybe aren't playing year round need to get reacclimated to exerting their bodies, or maybe if they're just playing the sport for the first time, right? Because generally some kids, they just, at some of these schools, they just want to try out and play the sport, right? Like it's not necessarily uncommon for kids to just pick up a sport in high school, and we see it all the time with the OIA. Sometimes they just need numbers, so kids play this, just pop in, they need bodies. It's not necessarily always with football, and even in football you see new players that come into that. So I understand the practice, and it makes 100% sense to have this 14-day heat acclimatization. There, I was like,
I'd try and say it, but I'd be like, yeah, I know how to say it. Assimilation period.
Yeah, the 14 days. So the way I interpret it, and it could be if the HHSA wants to use this to reference the quarterback not being eligible, I would look at it as, well, it doesn't seem like it relates to transfers. I tried to look at some of the OIA stuff, and a lot of the transfer rules, like 10-day, I know is something that's common about not being able to play, but a lot of that just is more of in-state. So I'm actually really, really curious about getting the final confirmation about the fact that this quarterback will be able to play, and what timing, and Kahuku having a quarterback coming in, and as Michael said yesterday, potentially an offensive lineman also coming in. But at the same time, competitive wise, if you're Kahuku, I mean, this is only a regular season game. Like, do you want to show all your cards in this regular season game against Campbell, or do you save it for the playoffs that are just around the corner?
This is insanity. This is actually crazy. I personally would try and save my cards, but that's more because I'm worried about a potential grievance being filed from the rest of the OIA being like, there's no way that this is legal, that this kid can play in one game on Friday for one school and play for another in, less than a week's time or just over a week's time or whatever. That being said, it does seem like you kind of laid out the case is there for him to be immediately eligible, especially considering it sounds like Kahuku's done some 2-day practices to try and get him up to the amount of practices that he needs and whatnot. It's a really interesting situation. The funny thing is, I don't even know if it'd be enough. I legitimately think Campbell's offense is that good,
and their
defense has shown that they're up to the task every single week. Now, that being said, Kahuku, back-to-back defending state champions, they're an outstanding program in general. It's been a weird year for them, and you could argue that they're a quarterback away from really taking things over because, per usual, their defense is awesome. Guess what? The Red Raiders always have an awesome defense. But it's been Mona Carvalho and what else, really, offensively for them. And it's not to, just take away from the other kids on there, but they just haven't put up the gaudy numbers where you've seen other teams do. That's what Campbell does every single week. I don't even know if this is enough, especially 1 week's time to learn the playbook. I don't know if he's had the playbook before, if he knows if it's the same system or anything like that. There's just so many moving pieces of it on top of the fact that you barely know if it's legal. It feels like it would just be way easier to pack it in and then go into the playoffs with it and then have that be the first time. What do I know? I'm not a Hawaii high school head coach, and they're pretty darn good. Like, there are a lot of really good head coaches here, so whatever. It's interesting. That's the very least I can say about it.
Yeah, so we will definitely follow the story this weekend and see what happens. Now, just a little bit more info about Fuyava. He has a 3-star rating on 247sports.com and holds one offer currently from UNLV. Ironically, as we always talk about the Mountain West. He came into the 2024 season as the starter for St. John Bosco and helped Bosco to a 34-27 win over Chaminade Madonna of Florida when he threw for 303 yards and 3 touchdowns. In his 6 games of action, he's tallied 1,155 yards and 13 touchdowns. There's also a freshman quarterback there at Bosco. Koa Malauulu has seen time with Fuiava, also splitting some of the reps, but Fuiava as being the starter. Although he did go down to injury against Sierra Canyon earlier this season, and Malauulu did step into the game and drove the Braves down the field for a go-ahead score that eventually led to a victory. So then maybe that kind of played into some decision-making there, as they have the young quarterback that has come in. But even though he hadn't got much time, he still got significant time and kind of proving his worth there at St. John Bosco. Malauulu is the freshman quarterback over there at St. John Bosco. But we'll continue to follow this story and a lot more, as you know, us and Scoring Live with our partnership together, bringing you the best overall coverage in Hawaii high school sports. But we'll step aside and close things out here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake up in the den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani and Paul Brecht. Michael Carroll just like to text us like funny things that come in as he is at the University of Hawaii getting ready for the official press conference that is set to take place coming up in about 10 minutes. So, and that is in regards to the announcement that came in overnight that Hawaii will become a full member of the Mountain West Conference in 2026. And more importantly, we'll be able to hear from some of the coaches on what this decision means for their programs. We do not know exactly which coaches are going to be there, but be sure you guys tune in tomorrow morning, and then we will definitely get some quotes and hopefully some audio for you guys to hear for yourself on what happens in this press conference, as this has kind of been the big news that we fell asleep to and then woke up to. And again, mahalo to UH Athletics Director Craig Angeles for joining us to kick things off here on the show in hour number 1. And you guys can listen to that conversation on demand at hawaiisportsradio.com or on our YouTube channel, as we are streaming live on YouTube as well. So mahalo and hello to everyone that are watching on YouTube. But yeah, it's been quite the eventful morning, and it is going to continue for us here. I also have another interview to do today for our Manawahine Wednesday tomorrow. You'll hear my chat with UH Soccer defender JC Jika. So UH Soccer continuing their undefeated streak
good
so far, and hopefully I'm trying to schedule something with Coach Bud as well. So a lot of stuff, and potentially something with Coach Beeman. So stay tuned for that, as on top of how much we got to give football their flowers, of course, because we hear it all the time. Football is a revenue generator. We tend to care a lot about some of our other sports here at the University of Hawaii. So stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of more exciting things that are in the works.
There's a lot of fun stuff that is on the way. I'm excited to listen to what Coach Laura Beeman has to say later today as well when the Big West Sports go with their preseason basketball chat with all the coaches. The men's basketball chat just came out, or chat, I guess. The preseason stuff came out for men's basketball there. They're currently doing this little series with every head coach from the league. I'm interested to hear what Aran Ganat had to say during that as well. A lot of fun stuff going on. Shout out to our ladies here in Hawaii in general, though, as you keep bringing up, and as we should, the Rainbow Wahine soccer team has been just otherworldly for the last month, give or take.
Yeah, just over a month, actually.
You know, just really, really good job by them. Rainbow Wahine volleyball, I mean, they're figuring it out still, I know, but man, oh man, every time SMU gets another big win, I can't help but to think, man, the ceiling of this team, if they can just find some consistency, going to be pretty great. There's so many great things going on when it comes to women's sports here in Hawaii. Hopefully it rubs off on my New York Liberty in Game 3 of the WNBA Finals.
And eventually to the New York Jets.
The Jets getting luck is so out of this world. Like, that is unrealistic to the umpteenth. That's like saying Hawaii is getting an invite to the SEC.
Hey, never say never.
They've broken me.
They would be able to break the grant of rights with the Mountain West should they actually be invited to a Power 4 conference like the SEC. All right, but just before we wrap up here, want to give you your basic takeaways from Hawaii moving over or becoming a full member of the Mountain West. That will begin on July 1st, 2026. And some of the things Craig was able to share with us is that the Big West did announce that for the sports that the Mountain West does not sponsor in men's volleyball, women's water polo, beach volleyball, and men's swimming and diving, those discussions with the Big West for Hawaii to remain as an affiliate member for those sports will begin today. So we do not have exact details on what will become of those sports and if they need to move to another conference or the Big West will have them. That should be, we'll see what happens in the coming days. The Mountain West will pay the $750,000 exit fee that is owed to the Big West for Hawaii leaving. And the Mountain West has told Hawaii that we will not have to pay the travel subsidies anymore, which is huge, saving Hawaii potentially moving a lot of the sports from the Big West and not having to do that with football, probably roughly somewhere around a little over $1 million. So that is huge for the University of Hawaii. There was national media reporting that the Mountain West are still looking for other football-only members, potentially Toledo and Northern Illinois, which from a media standpoint, it's interesting to follow because should they add one or both of those schools, it would mean that there would be, at least football anyways, would span across 5 time zones. So that is something that could up their potential media rights value. And speaking of media rights, we did ask Craig about the TV deal with Spectrum because that contract is set to expire July of next year. So that is still left to be discussed, where it will give a 1-year gap between the expiration of the Spectrum deal and the beginning of a potential new deal with the Mountain West. So that's other things that we won't get any details or clarity on until we'll see. That one will take a little bit longer than the Big West situation. And then the 5% payout that Hawaii will receive from the exit and poaching fees because of those other schools that departed the Mountain West, that will remain at 5% because it only counts for what happens now, which is Hawaii is a football-only member, so it makes 100% sense, but we just had to ask the question because it deals with money. So those are kind of like the main takeaways. Again, there is a press conference at the University of Hawaii in a few minutes that is set to happen, and we'll have more details on tomorrow's show for sure.
And according to our Michael Lascaro, he's going to try to Instagram Live it. Keep your eye on our social media to see if he perhaps is able to do that. If not, we will have the full audio and we will have all of the takeaways and what you need later on and later throughout this week. But keep an eye on that and just shoot us a follow on social media anyway at High Sports Radio, both on the X app or Twitter app, I guess, or Instagram. And yeah, thanks for keeping along with us as we've been trying to figure out all of the crazy information that comes down the pipeline. Never a dull day here in Hawaii athletics.
It's been fun. I really wish they would stream it live on YouTube. That's what they did for like Craig Angeles' press conference. So
Yeah, well,
maybe
Craig's
I'm
a bigger deal. What can we say?
I'm on the YouTube for Hawaii Athletics, and I haven't seen it pop up with whether they're going to go live. If they do, I would say just continue to tune into this station on not on our YouTube, but just terrestrial or hawaiisportsradio.com, because should they go live on YouTube, we will carry and cut into that press conference and play it for you here on Hawaii Sports Radio. So if it's live, then we'll get it for you. If not, like Paul said, we will get you what you need to know tomorrow morning on the show, 8 to 10 again. And feel free to text us, 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481, and text us any questions you guys might have or concerns, or shout out again to the texters that texted in regarding men's volleyball in the Big West and needing 6 teams to make it complete on that side. So it's a lot, you guys, but we appreciate you, and stick around for more. And we didn't even get to the actual UH football game coming up this Saturday, so there is more left to be discussed. So tune in tomorrow, 8 to 10. But for now, for Paul Brecht, I'm Kule Agbayani. Mahalo for listening and watching. It's been Wake Up in the Den. Bye!
DOIA lives here. KGU AM, K236CR. Honolulu is the Hawaii Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760.